She couldn't have children, so her husband threw her out in front of everyone. Desperate and broken, she took the first job she found. Caretaker for 2 grieving kids in a hidden coastal villa. What she didn't know, their father was a powerful man with dangerous enemies. And the moment his children smiled at her, he decided she was never leaving. The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, and every conversation in the room died with it. Amara stood frozen in the doorway of her mother-in-law's dining room, the envelope still clutched in her trembling hand. She'd been foolish enough to think the medical results were private. Foolish enough to believe her husband would wait until they were alone. "Read it," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the 60 guests assembled for his parents' anniversary party. His face was flushed, whether from alcohol or anger. Amara couldn't tell anymore. "Read it out loud so everyone knows why I'm done pretending." "Marcus, please," her voice cracked. "She can't have children," he announced, cutting her off. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of my mother asking for grandchildren. And she's been lying to us the whole time. "I wasn't lying," Amara whispered, but no one was listening. Marcus's mother rose from her seat, her expression a mixture of pity and disgust. "I knew something was wrong with you. No wonder you kept making excuses." The room spun. Amara gripped the doorframe, her medical report, her private, devastating truth, now public entertainment for people in designer dresses and tailored suits who'd never liked her anyway. "I want a divorce," Marcus said flatly. "I've already contacted my attorney. You have until Monday to move out." The words hit her like physical blows. Move out. Of the home they'd bought together. The home where she'd painted the walls and planted the garden and stupidly, naively believed she'd raise children someday. "You're broken," Marcus continued, and something in Amara snapped. She dropped the envelope and walked forward, her heels clicking against the marble with a steadiness she didn't feel. When she reached Marcus, she looked him directly in the eyes. "You're right," she said quietly. "I can't give you children. But that doesn't make me broken. It makes you cruel." Then she turned and walked out, leaving her wedding ring on the hallway table. The rain started 20 minutes into her drive, turning the highway into a blur of red taillights and gray sky. Amara had thrown exactly 7 items into her overnight bag: 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, underwear, and the photograph of her grandmother, the only family member who'd actually loved her. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Marcus's mother. Marcus's sister. Even Marcus himself, probably realizing that humiliating her publicly might not play well in divorce court. She blocked them all. At a dimly lit rest stop, Amara sat in her car and opened her banking app. Marcus had already emptied their joint account. Of course he had. She had exactly $843 to her name. Her hands shook as she scrolled through job listings. Waitress, retail clerk, office assistant, all requiring references she didn't have and an address she no longer possessed. Then she saw it, posted just 2 hours ago. Caretaker needed. Remote coastal villa. Live-in position. Immediate start. Excellent pay. Must be comfortable with children. Discretion required. The location was listed as Waverly Cove, a tiny town 300 miles up the coast that Amara had never heard of. No references required. Just a short questionnaire and a phone interview. Her finger hovered over the apply button. Discretion required. That was an odd phrase. So was the salary, nearly triple what a typical caretaker position would offer. But beggars couldn't be choosers, and Amara was officially a beggar. She filled out the questionnaire quickly. Yes, she loved children. No, she had no family ties keeping her in the area. Yes, she could start immediately. No, she didn't mind remote locations. The response came in 4 minutes. Thank you for your application. Phone interview scheduled for 6 p.m. today. Please answer promptly. Amara checked the time. 5:47 p.m. Her heart hammered as she waited in the rain-soaked parking lot, watching trucks rumble past. At exactly 6 p.m., her phone rang. Miss Amara Chen? The voice was female, crisp, professional. Yes, speaking. I'm calling regarding the caretaker position. I have a few questions, and I need you to answer honestly. Lives may depend on it. Amara's breath caught. Lives? The children you'd be caring for have had a difficult year. They need someone stable, trustworthy, and most importantly, someone who won't leave. Can you commit to at least 6 months? Yes, Amara said immediately. She had nowhere else to go anyway. Have you ever been arrested?
No.
Do you have any substance abuse issues?
No.
Why did you leave your previous residence so suddenly? Amara hesitated, then decided on honesty. My husband divorced me today. Publicly. I needed to leave. There was a pause. I'm sorry to hear that. One final question, and please think carefully before answering. If you discovered that your employer was involved in activities that existed in legal gray areas, would you go to the authorities? Every instinct screamed at Amara to hang up. Legal gray areas. This wasn't a normal job posting. This was something else entirely. But as lightning cracked across the sky and rain pounded her windshield, Amara thought about Marcus's face when he'd called her broken, about his mother's disgust, about having $800 and nowhere to sleep. No, she said. I wouldn't. Another pause, longer this time. A car will pick you up tomorrow morning at the Waverly Cove bus station. 10 a.m. Don't be late, Miss Chen. The children are waiting. The line went dead. Amara sat in stunned silence, her phone still pressed to her ear. What had she just agreed to? But it didn't matter. She started her car, programmed Waverly Cove into her GPS, and drove north through the storm, leaving behind the life that had rejected her and heading towards something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She didn't know it yet, but in less than 24 hours, she would meet 2 8-year-old twins who would call her their angel, and the dangerous man who would call her his. The bus to Waverly Cove smelled like stale coffee and diesel fuel. Amara spent the entire 6-hour journey staring out the window, watching suburban sprawl give way to farmland, then forests, and finally the jagged coastline of Northern California. Waverly Cove wasn't even a dot on most maps. The bus driver had to check his route twice before confirming the stop. You sure about this, miss? He asked as Amara gathered her single bag. Ain't nothing out here but fishing boats and rich folks' vacation homes. I'm sure, she lied. The bus stop was nothing more than a wooden bench and a faded sign. As the bus pulled away, leaving her alone on the side of a coastal highway, Amara questioned every decision that had led her here. Then she saw the car. It was a black Mercedes SUV with tinted windows, idling 50 feet down the road. As she approached, 2 men stepped out, both wearing dark suits that did nothing to hide the bulges beneath their jackets. Guns. These men were carrying guns. Amara Chen? The taller one asked. He had a scar running through his left eyebrow and eyes that assessed her like a threat. Yes, she managed. ID. She fumbled for her driver's license with shaking hands. The man studied it carefully, then nodded to his companion, who opened the rear door. Get in. No phones during the drive. What? Why? House rules, ma'am. The location is private. Amara's survival instincts finally kicked in. Maybe I should reconsider. The children are expecting you, the scarred man said, and something in his expression softened. Luca made you a welcome card. Livia picked flowers from the garden. They haven't been excited about anything in 8 months. The mention of the children steadied her. Whatever this job was, whatever legal gray areas meant, there were 2 kids involved who needed someone. She climbed into the SUV. The drive took 40 minutes along increasingly narrow roads. They passed through the tiny village of Waverly Cove, a single street with a market, a diner, and a church, before climbing into the hills above the ocean. The villa appeared suddenly, hidden behind iron gates and towering pines. It was enormous, all glass and white stone, perched on a cliff with the Pacific Ocean stretching endlessly beyond. Welcome to Casa Moretti, the scarred man said as the gates swung open. Moretti. The name meant nothing to Amara, but she filed it away anyway. Inside, the villa was stunning. Marble floors, modern furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded everything with light. But it felt cold, more like a museum than a home. "Miss Chin is here," the scarred man announced to someone Amara couldn't see. Then she heard them, small footsteps running, and suddenly 2 children burst into the foyer. The twins were identical, with dark curly hair and enormous brown eyes that held far too much sadness for 8-year-olds. The girl clutched a handful of wildflowers, already wilting. The boy held a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. They stopped abruptly when they saw her, suddenly shy. Amara's heart cracked open. She knelt down slowly, making herself their height. "Hi there.
I'm Amara."
You must be Luca and Livia." The girl, Livia, stepped forward first, offering the flowers with trembling hands. "We picked these for you. Papa said you were coming to take care of us." "They're beautiful," Amara said, accepting them gently. "Thank you." Luca thrust the card at her, not meeting her eyes. "I drew our house. And the ocean.
And
Mama's garden." Amara studied the drawing carefully. A simple house, blue waves, and a garden bursting with colorful flowers. In the corner, a small figure with angel wings. "Is this me?" she asked, pointing to the angel. Luca nodded, still not looking up. "Papa said you're here to help us. Like a guardian angel." Something in Amara's chest tightened. These children had lost their mother. They were living in this beautiful, cold house with armed guards and a father who was apparently involved in something dangerous enough to require discretion. "I'm not an angel," she said softly, "but I promise I'll do my best to take care of you both. Deal?" Livia launched herself forward, wrapping small arms around Amara's neck. After a moment, Luca joined in. Over their heads, Amara saw an older woman watching from the doorway, probably the housekeeper. She was wiping tears from her eyes. "They haven't hugged anyone since Maria died," the scarred guard murmured. "Not even their father." The word sent a chill through Amara. What kind of man was Dante Moretti? And what had happened to make these children so afraid to love? "Mr. Moretti is away on business," the housekeeper said, composing herself. "He won't return until tonight."
I've Rosa.
"I'll show you to your room and explain the children's routine." As Rosa led her through the villa, the twins holding each hand, Amara caught glimpses of Dante Moretti's life. Expensive art on the walls, a study lined with law books and what looked like ledgers, security cameras in every corner. This wasn't just a wealthy man's home. This was a fortress. And she'd just agreed to live inside it. Amara had just finished reading the twins their second bedtime story when she heard the front door slam. Heavy footsteps echoed through the villa, sharp and angry. Livia's hand tightened around Amara's, her small body going rigid. "It's okay," Amara whispered, though her own heart was racing. "That must be your papa. He sounds mad," Luca said, pulling his blanket up to his chin. The footsteps grew louder, climbing the stairs. Then a voice, deep, cold, and edged with fury, cut through the quiet.
Rosa.
"Where the hell is everyone?" Amara had exactly 3 seconds to decide whether to stay with the frightened children or face whatever storm was coming. She chose the latter. "Stay here," she told the twins gently. "I'll be right back." She stepped into the hallway and nearly collided with the most intimidating man she'd ever seen. Dante Moretti was tall, easily 6'3", with broad shoulders and the kind of presence that made the spacious hallway feel suffocating. His dark hair was disheveled, his suit jacket was gone, and his white shirt had what looked like blood on the sleeve. His face was all sharp angles and barely controlled rage. When his eyes, dark and dangerous, locked onto hers, Amara forgot how to breathe. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded.
I'm Amara Chen.
"The new caretaker. I arrived this morning." "I didn't authorize any new staff." He turned toward the stairs, raising his voice.
Marco.
"Get up here now." The scarred guard appeared within seconds, slightly out of breath. "Mr. Moretti, I can explain. You brought a stranger into my home while I was gone? Into the same house as my children? Sir, we followed protocol. Mrs. Torres conducted the interview, ran the background check. I don't care about protocol. Dante's voice dropped to something more lethal than shouting. My children are targets. Every person in this house is vetted by me personally, not Torres.
Not you.
Me. Amara's mind reeled.
Targets.
These beautiful children were targets. Mr. Moretti, she said, stepping forward before her courage failed. I understand you're upset, but your children are right there. She gestured to the bedroom door, where two small faces peeked out anxiously. And they're scared. Dante's gaze snapped to the twins, then back to Amara. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, guilt, maybe, or pain, before the ice returned. Luca, Olivia, back to bed.
Now.
But Papa, Olivia started.
Now.
The twins retreated, and the door clicked shut. Amara's heart broke at the sound. Dante moved closer, and she forced herself not to step back. He studied her with unnerving intensity, taking in everything, her cheap clothes, her lack of jewelry, the exhaustion she couldn't hide. What are you running from? He asked quietly. The question startled her. I'm not. Everyone who comes here is running from something.
So, what is it?
Abusive relationship?
Debt?
Law. My husband divorced me, Amara said, lifting her chin. Yesterday. He did it publicly, at a party, in front of everyone we knew. Then he emptied our bank account and kicked me out. I had nowhere to go, and I needed a job. That's it. No debt.
No crimes.
Just bad luck and worse judgment in men. Something shifted in Dante's expression. The anger didn't disappear, but it redirected. He threw you out for what reason? Amara hesitated, then decided this man would probably find out anyway. I can't have children. He decided that made me worthless. The silence stretched between them. Dante's jaw clenched, and when he spoke again, his voice was surprisingly soft. Your ex-husband is a fool. Before Amara could respond, Livia's door opened again. The little girl stood there in her nightgown, tears streaming down her face. Please don't send her away, Papa, she sobbed. Please. She read to us, and she didn't look sad when we talked about Mama, and she made Luca laugh at dinner, and nobody makes Luca laugh anymore, and… Dante crossed the hallway in 3 strides and dropped to his knees, pulling his daughter into his arms.
SKK, piccola.
It's okay. Promise you won't send her away, Livia insisted, clutching his shirt. Promise. Over his daughter's head, Dante looked at Amara. She saw something she hadn't expected in those dark eyes, desperation. This dangerous, angry man was utterly lost when it came to his grieving children. I promise, he said to Livia, but his eyes never left Amara's. After settling Livia back in bed, with Amara specifically requested to stay beside her, Dante waited in the hallway. When Amara finally emerged, he gestured for her to follow him. They walked in silence to a large dining room overlooking the dark ocean. Dante poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and downed it in one swallow. The twins haven't connected with anyone since their mother died, he said finally. Not the nannies, not the therapists, not even me most days. But they smiled today. Rosa said they actually smiled. They're wonderful children, Amara said carefully. They're in danger, Dante corrected. I have enemies, Miss Chen. People who would hurt them to hurt me. That's why security is so tight. That's why I'm so careful about who enters this house. What kind of enemies? He looked at her for a long moment. The kind that would make you run, if you had any sense. Maybe I'm tired of running, Amara said. A ghost of a smile crossed Dante's face. You're either very brave or very stupid. Can't I be both? This time he actually smiled, and it transformed his entire face. For just a second, he looked less like a dangerous criminal and more like a tired father. You can stay, he said, but you follow my rules exactly. You don't leave the property without security. You don't discuss anything you see or hear. And if I ever think you're a threat to my children, you disappear. Understood? Understood. Dante nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Miss Jin? Thank you for making them smile. Then he was gone, leaving Amara alone with the ocean and the growing realization that she just entered a world far more complicated and dangerous than a simple divorce. Morning arrived with the sound of seagulls and small fists pounding on Amara's door. Miss Amara, Papa said we can go to the market today. She opened the door to find both twins already dressed, their faces bright with excitement she suspected was rare. The market? Amara asked, still rubbing sleep from her eyes. In the village, Luca explained, bouncing on his toes. We haven't been in forever. Papa says you can take us if Marco goes too. Amara glanced down the hallway and found Dante leaning against the doorframe of his study, coffee cup in hand. He'd changed from last night's blood-stained shirt into a simple black t-shirt and jeans. Somehow, he looked even more dangerous in casual clothes. They need fresh air, he said with a shrug. And apparently they trust you enough to behave. 2 hours later, Amara found herself walking through Waverly Cove's tiny market with a twin holding each hand and Marco trailing 10 feet behind, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. The market was small, just a dozen vendors selling fresh produce, flowers, and local crafts. But the twins were enchanted, pointing at everything with wonder. Mama used to bring us here, Livia said softly, stopping at a flower stand. She always bought sunflowers for the kitchen table. The vendor, an elderly woman with kind eyes, smiled sadly at the little girl. Your mama had excellent taste. These just came in this morning. Amara bought 2 bunches without hesitation, and Livia's face lit up like Christmas morning. As they moved through the market, Amara noticed something strange. People were staring, not with hostility, but with surprise. An older man actually stopped mid-conversation to watch them pass. Is that really the Moretti children? Someone whispered. I haven't seen them smile since Maria died, another voice answered. At the produce stand, Luca carefully selected tomatoes and peppers, explaining seriously that these were for Papa's favorite pasta. The vendor, a stocky man with flour on his apron, watched the boy with obvious emotion. It's good to see you, Luca, he said gruffly. Your papa. He's been worried about you both. We have Miss Amara now, Luca announced proudly. She takes care of us. The man's eyes shifted to Amara, assessing her carefully. Then he added an extra bag of fresh herbs to their purchase.
No chari.
Welcome to Waverly Cove, miss. By the time they returned to the villa, the twins were chattering nonstop about their adventure. They burst into Dante's study without knocking, arms full of flowers and produce.
Papa.
We got everything for dinner, and Miss Amara is going to teach us how to make a garden, and the flower lady remembered Mama, and... Dante looked up from his desk, and for the second time, Amara saw his carefully controlled expression crack. His children, his sad, quiet children, were being children again.
That's
wonderful, he said, his voice rough. Why don't you take those to Rosa? After the twins ran off, Dante gestured for Amara to stay. Marco had already disappeared to his post. What did you do to them? Dante asked, but there was no accusation in it. Only wonder. I just let them talk about their mother, Amara said simply. Everyone else seems afraid to mention her. But they need to remember. Memory isn't the enemy, forgetting is. Dante was quiet for a long moment. My wife died 10 months ago. Car accident on the coastal highway. Since then, the twins barely spoke. Barely ate. I hired 5 different therapists and none of them could reach them. Because therapy can't replace what they really need, Amara said gently. They don't need someone to fix them. They need someone to sit in the sadness with them and then show them it's okay to feel happy again. And you know this because I lost people too, Amara said. My grandmother raised me. When she died, my aunt told me I needed to move on, stop being sad, focus on the future. It made everything worse. Grief doesn't work on a schedule. Dante stood and walked to the window, overlooking the ocean. There's something you should know about me, Miss Chin. I'm not a good man. I've done things, he paused. Things that would horrify you. But my children are everything. They're the only pure thing left in my life. Then why do they barely know you? The words came out before Amara could stop them. Dante turned, his expression dangerous. Excuse me? Amara's heart hammered, but she pressed forward. Livia told me they eat dinner with Rosa most nights. Lucas said you're always in your study, or away on business. They love you desperately, but they're also a little afraid of you. They should be afraid, Dante said coldly. My world is dangerous. The less attached they are to me, the safer they are. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The words hung in the air. Marco, who'd been standing in the hallway, made a choking sound. Dante's eyes went dark. What did you just say? Amara's survival instinct screamed at her to back down, but she thought of Livia crying in the hallway last night, begging her father not to send Amara away. Of Luca's proud smile when he talked about his papa's favorite pasta. Your children already lost their mother, she said firmly. Now they're losing their father too, bit by bit, because you think pushing them away will protect them. It won't. It'll just make them feel abandoned. You've been here one day. And in one day, I've seen more of your children's hearts than you have in months. When was the last time you read them a bedtime story? Took them to the market? Sat with them without checking your phone or having Marco interrupt? Dante moved toward her, and every instinct told Amara to run. But she held her ground. He stopped inches away, and she could feel the controlled fury radiating off him. You're right, he said finally, and Amara nearly fell over in shock. What? You're right, Dante repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm so afraid of losing them that I'm losing them anyway. Maria would have hated what I've become. The raw pain in his voice made Amara's anger evaporate. It's not too late, she said softly. Have dinner with them tonight. Real dinner at the table where you actually talk.
No phones.
No business. Just you and your children. Dante studied her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. A crack in the ice she'd seen last night.
Join us, he said.
What? For dinner. The twins will be more comfortable if you're there, he paused. And honestly, so will I. Before Amara could respond, Livia's voice echoed from the kitchen. Miss Amara, come help us make Papa's favorite. Dante's lips quirked into an almost smile. Looks like you're already part of the family, Miss Chin. As Amara headed toward the kitchen, she felt Dante's eyes following her and wondered, not for the first time, what exactly she'd gotten herself into. 300 miles south, in a downtown law office that smelled of leather and expensive cologne, Marcus Chin signed the final divorce papers with a flourish. Congratulations, his attorney said, sliding the documents into a folder. You're officially a free man. And given that she didn't contest anything, you kept the house, the car, and the investment accounts. Marcus leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. Amara never had a spine. I'm not surprised, she just disappeared. Speaking of which, do you know where she went? We're required to serve her a copy. Not my problem anymore, Marcus stood, straightening his tie. She could be living under a bridge for all I care. But as he left the law office and checked his phone, something caught his attention. A notification from his bank, an incoming wire transfer for $50,000. Marcus frowned. He wasn't expecting any payments. He opened the banking app, and his blood ran cold. The transfer came from an offshore account with no name attached, just a reference number. But there was a memo line. Payment for services rendered. Amara Chin Matter. His hands started shaking. Someone had paid him $50,000, and the only explanation was connected to his ex-wife. Marcus immediately called the bank. I need to know where this transfer came from. I'm sorry, sir, but that account is flagged as confidential. I can't provide. I didn't authorize this. I need to know who sent it. After 20 minutes of arguing and threatening legal action, the bank supervisor finally provided one piece of information. The account was registered to a shell corporation with ties to import-export businesses along the California coast. Import-export. Marcus knew that phrase. He'd heard it 4 years ago when he'd done some consulting work for a client who turned out to have connections to organized crime. He'd gotten out fast, but not before learning how these operations worked. Someone in the underworld had paid him. But why? The answer hit him like a freight train: Amara. His fingers flew across his phone, searching for anything about his ex-wife's whereabouts. The trail was cold until he remembered the shared location tracking they'd set up years ago, something he'd forgotten to disable. Her last known location pinged 3 days ago: Waverly Cove, California. Marcus pulled up information on the tiny coastal town. Population 847. Nothing remarkable except. His breath caught. One search result stood out: a 3-year-old news article about a reclusive businessman who'd purchased a cliffside estate in Waverly Cove for $83 million. The businessman's name was mentioned only once: Dante Moretti. Marcus's blood turned to ice.
He knew that name.
Everyone in certain circles knew that name. Dante Moretti wasn't just wealthy. He was connected, deeply connected, to one of the most powerful crime families on the West Coast. Import-export was just the polite term. The reality was money laundering, smuggling, and activities that made Marcus's consulting work look like child's play. And somehow, his pathetic, barren ex-wife had ended up in Moretti's territory. Marcus spent the next hour digging deeper, pulling every string he had from his old consulting days. What he discovered made him realize he'd made a catastrophic mistake. Amara's grandmother, the woman who'd raised her, had owned a 40-acre property near the Oregon border. When she died, the land went to Amara. Marcus had never paid attention because it seemed worthless, just forest and rocks. But according to the property records, that land contained something valuable: an old private road that led to a hidden cove, perfect for offshore deliveries. The kind of cove that criminal organizations would pay millions to access. And there was more. That land was currently contested in a quiet legal battle between two parties: the Moretti family interests and a rival organization based in Los Angeles, the Castellano family. If Amara was under Moretti's protection, she was suddenly very valuable. Not as a person, but as a pawn in a territorial war. Marcus's mind raced. $50,000 was nothing compared to what that land was worth. If he played this right, he could leverage Amara's position for real money. Maybe even get her to sign over the property rights while claiming he wanted reconciliation. He grabbed his phone and dialed a number he'd sworn never to use again: a contact from his consulting days who worked for the Castellano family. "This is Marcus Chen. I have information about Dante Moretti's operation. Information you'll want to pay for." The voice on the other end was smooth, dangerous. "We're listening. My ex-wife is currently living at Moretti's estate. She owns property that both families want. I can get her out of there and convince her to sign it over to you for the right price." "And why would we trust you?" "Because Moretti doesn't know I exist yet," Marcus said, his confidence growing. "Because Amara still thinks I'm just a cruel ex-husband. She has no idea what she's sitting on. I can get close to her, gain her trust, and hand her to you on a silver platter." There was a long pause. "How much?" $500,000. "Plus protection if Moretti comes after me." "You're asking for a lot. I'm offering you access to property worth 10 times that and a way to humiliate Dante Moretti." "I'd say it's a bargain." Another pause, then. "We'll be in touch. Don't contact us again. We'll contact you. And Chen, if you're lying or if this is some kind of setup, we'll make sure you regret it." The line went dead. Marcus sat back in his car, his heart pounding. He'd just made a deal with the devil, but for $500,000 and the chance to prove that Amara wasn't as worthless as he'd thought, just valuable in a different way, it was worth the risk. He pulled up the last photo he had of Amara on his phone. She'd been smiling at their wedding, naive and hopeful. "Looks like you're useful after all," he muttered. What Marcus didn't know, what he could know, was that the Castellano family had already tried twice to get to Moretti's weak points. And both times, they'd failed because Dante Moretti didn't have weak points.
Until now.
until a barren woman with a gentle heart had walked into his fortress and made his children smile. Until Dante Moretti started caring about something other than revenge and territory. The war Marcus had just ignited would destroy lives. And Amara, caught in the middle, had no idea the storm that was coming. The nightmare started at 2:47 a.m. Amara woke to the sound of screaming, high-pitched, terrified, and coming from the twins' room. She threw off her blankets and ran down the hallway, her heart in her throat. Luca was sitting upright in bed, tears streaming down his face, his small body shaking violently. Livia was trying to comfort him, but she was crying too. It's okay, Amara said, rushing to Luca's side. You're safe. I'm here.
Manga. Luca sobbed.
She was in the car, and it was falling, and I couldn't reach her, and... Breathe with me. Amara pulled him close, feeling his racing heartbeat against her chest. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. You're okay. Livia climbed onto the bed and wrapped her arms around both of them. He has the dream about Mama's accident. It happens a lot. How often? Amara asked gently. Almost every night, a deep voice said from the doorway. Dante stood there in pajama pants and nothing else, his hair disheveled, his expression raw. He looked less like the dangerous mob boss and more like a heartbroken father who didn't know how to fix his son's pain. Papa, Luca whimpered, reaching for him. Dante crossed the room in 2 strides and gathered his son into his arms. I'm here, Piccolo. I'm here. I couldn't save her, Luca said between sobs. In the dream, I'm there, and I can see her, and I try to help, but I can't move, and... You were never there, Dante said firmly, his voice thick with emotion. You weren't in the car. You couldn't have saved her, because you were safe at home with your sister. This wasn't your fault, but I should have been there. Maybe if I... No, Dante cupped his son's face. Listen to me. What happened to your mama was an accident.
Un terrible, horrible accident.
But it was never, ever your responsibility to save her. Amara felt tears prick her own eyes as she watched this dangerous man hold his broken child with such tenderness. It took 30 minutes to calm Luca down. Amara made warm milk with honey while Dante sat with both twins, telling them stories about their mother. Happy stories, funny stories, stories that made them smile through their tears. Finally, both children drifted back to sleep, curled together in Luca's bed. Dante stood slowly, his movements exhausted. He gestured for Amara to follow him, and they walked in silence to the rooftop terrace, a space she hadn't seen before. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, dark and vast under a sky full of stars. The sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below was almost hypnotic. Dante leaned against the railing, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Thank you, he finally said, for knowing exactly what to do. I always freeze when he has those nightmares. I don't know what to say. You did perfectly tonight, Amara said. You told him the truth and held him. That's what he needed. Dante laughed bitterly. I'm a man who's negotiated million-dollar deals, who's faced down enemies with guns pointed at my head, and I can't comfort my own 8-year-old son. That's different. Those enemies can't break your heart. He turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. You understand that, don't you? What it's like when the people you love become your greatest vulnerability. Yes, Amara said softly. Tell me about your ex-husband. Amara hesitated, but something about the darkness and the ocean made honesty easier. Marcus and I met in college. He was charming, ambitious, everything I thought I wanted. We got married young, too young. For the first year, everything was fine. Then his mother started asking about grandchildren. And when you couldn't give them to him, he changed. Little comments at first. Are you sure you're trying hard enough? Maybe if you lost weight, then the comments became accusations. By the time I got the test results confirming I couldn't have children, he'd already decided I was worthless. He's an idiot, Dante said flatly. You said that before. Because it bears repeating. What kind of man abandons his wife over something she can't control? The kind who only valued me for what I could produce, Amara said. Not for who I am. Dante was quiet for a moment. My wife, Maria, was the opposite. She saw past everything. The business, the danger, the darkness, and loved me anyway. When she died, it felt like the last good thing in my life disappeared. But you have the twins, who are in constant danger because of me. Dante's hands gripped the railing. Do you know why security is so tight? Why I'm so paranoid about strangers? You said you have enemies. I have enemies inside and outside my organization. Rival families who are on my territory. Former associates who think I've grown weak. Even people within my own family who'd sell me out for the right price. He turned to face her fully. The twins aren't just my children. They're leverage. Targets. The easiest way to destroy me is to hurt them. Amara's blood ran cold. Has anyone tried?
Twice.
Once when they were 6, someone attempted to grab Livia from school. We stopped it, but it's why they're homeschooled now. The second time was 3 months ago. A car followed us from the city. Marco ran it off the road before it could get close. That's why you reacted so strongly when you found out about me, Amara said, understanding clicking into place. Every person who enters this house is a potential threat. Every smile, every kind word could be an act. Dante's jaw clenched. I can't trust anyone. Not completely. Which means I'm raising my children in a prison of my own making. What about getting out? Amara asked. Leaving this life behind. Dante laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't just leave. The only way out is death or betrayal, and betrayal leads to death anyway. This is my legacy, Miss Chen. Blood and violence, and watching my back until someone finally gets lucky. That's a terrible legacy to give your children. You think I don't know that? His voice cracked. Every day I see Maria in their faces, and I remember the promises I made her. That I'd keep them safe. That I'd give them a normal life. And every day I fail. Amara stepped closer. You're not failing. Your children are alive, healthy, and despite everything, they love you. That's not failure. They barely know me. Then change that. You can't control the danger outside these walls, but you can control whether they have a father who's present, who laughs with them, who shows them that even in darkness, there's still love. Dante stared at her, and something in his expression shifted, something vulnerable and desperate. How are you so sure? About everything? Because I've lost everything too, Amara said. And I learned that you can either let it destroy you, or let it teach you what really matters. Your children matter, Mr. Moretti. And they need their father, not a ghost who hides in his study. They stood there on the rooftop, the ocean wind whipping around them, two broken people who'd somehow found themselves in the same impossible situation. Call me Dante, he said quietly. If you're going to lecture me about my parenting, we should at least be on a first-name basis. Amara smiled. Then call me Amara. Miss Chen makes me feel like a schoolteacher. Deal, he extended his hand, and she took it. His grip was warm, strong, and surprisingly gentle. Neither of them realized that in a car parked 3 miles down the coastal road, a photographer with a long-range lens had captured every moment of their conversation. Or that by morning, those photos would be in the hands of the Castellano family. Or that Marcus Chen's carefully laid trap was about to spring closed. The morning started peacefully. Amara had convinced Dante to join them for breakfast, a real breakfast at the table, not coffee gulped down while reading reports. The twins were thrilled, chattering about the garden they wanted to plant and asking their father a million questions. Dante, surprisingly, answered every one. He was stiff at first, clearly uncomfortable with casual family time, but gradually he relaxed. By the time Luca made him laugh with a story about Rosa's cat, Amara saw a different man entirely. Not a mob boss, but simply a father. Can we go for a drive? Livia asked, swinging her legs under the table. Please, Papa? Miss Amara hasn't seen the lighthouse yet. Dante hesitated, glancing at Marco, who stood by the door. The coastal road is secure, Marco confirmed. We've had no alerts in weeks.
Fine, Dante said.
But Marco drives, and we take the armored car. 30 minutes later, they were driving down the winding coastal highway, the twins pointing out landmarks, while Amara took in the stunning views. Dante sat in front with Marco, occasionally glancing back at his children with an expression that made Amara's chest ache. They were becoming a family. Slowly, carefully, but it was happening. Then everything went wrong. The first black SUV appeared from a side road, accelerating hard to pull alongside them. The second came from behind, boxing them in. Contact! Marco shouted, his hand going to his weapon. Hold on. He swerved hard, trying to break free, but the SUVs matched every move. The one beside them rammed into their vehicle, and Livia screamed. Get down, Dante commanded, unbuckling his seatbelt and climbing into the back. He pushed both twins to the floor and covered them with his body, then pulled Amara down beside them. Stay down, don't move. Amara's heart hammered as she heard gunfire, sharp cracks that made her ears ring. Marco was shouting into his radio, calling for backup, while expertly controlling the car with one hand. The pursuing SUVs rammed them again, harder this time, pushing them toward the cliff edge. Through the window, Amara saw the ocean far below, waves crashing against rocks. They were going to die. Then more vehicles appeared, these ones she recognized from the villa. Dante's reinforcements surrounded them, forcing the attacking SUVs back. One tried to escape and was cut off, spinning out on the narrow road. Marco accelerated through the opening, and within minutes they were racing back toward the villa, a convoy of protective vehicles surrounding them. Nobody spoke during the ride back. At the villa, Dante carried both twins inside while they clung to him, crying. Rosa met them at the door, her face pale with fear. Take them upstairs, Dante said, his voice lethal calm.
Lock the doors.
Nobody goes in or out except Amara. He kissed each child's forehead. You're safe now, I promise. Then he turned to Marco. Conference room.
Now.
Everyone. Amara stayed with the twins, holding them as they trembled and cried. She sang softly, stroked their hair, and told them over and over that everything would be okay, even though her own hands were shaking. An hour later, Dante appeared in the doorway. His expression was cold fury barely contained. Are they asleep? He asked quietly. Amara nodded, carefully extracting herself from the bed where both children had finally dozed off, exhausted from fear. Dante led her to his study and closed the door. Pack your things. You and the twins are leaving within the hour. What? My enemies found us. Found them, his jaw clenched. That attack wasn't random. Someone knew exactly which car we'd be in, which route we'd take. Someone's been watching us. So you're sending us away? I'm sending you to a safe house, a property I own in the countryside, 2 hours inland. It's isolated, heavily guarded, and off any grid my enemies know about. You'll be safe there. For how long? Until I eliminate the threat. Dante poured himself a drink with shaking hands, the first sign of how rattled he truly was. I can't. I won't risk their lives. Not again. Dante. Don't. He downed the whiskey. Don't tell me it'll be fine, or that we can handle this together. You saw what just happened. Those men would have killed us all, including 2 innocent children, to get to me. That's my world, Amara. That's what loving me means. The last words hung in the air between them. I should go with them, Dante said finally. But if I do, my enemies will just follow. The safest thing is for me to stay here, draw their attention, while you keep the twins hidden. You trust me with them? He looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. You're the only person I trust. Rosa's loyal, but she's not trained for this. Marco needs to stay with me. You're the one they love. The one they need. Then I'll keep them safe, Amara promised. Dante crossed the room and took her hands. If anything happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. If it does, he continued firmly, there's a safety deposit box in the Waverly Cove Bank. Everything the twins need is in there: trust funds, property deeds, custody documents naming you as their guardian. Amara's breath caught. You barely know me. I know you enough. I know you die before letting harm come to them. I know you love them already. I see it every time you look at them. His grip tightened. Promise me. If something happens, you'll take care of them. Get them far away from this life. Give them the childhood Maria wanted for them. I promise, Amara whispered. But you're going to be fine. You're going to fix this and come get us, and we'll all have dinner together like a normal family. We're not a normal family. No, Amara agreed, surprised by her own certainty. We're better. Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Hope, maybe, or longing. For just a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he pressed his forehead to hers, breathing her in. Thank you, he whispered, for giving them back their smiles, for giving me a reason to fight beyond revenge. Then he pulled away and became the cold, dangerous man again. Marco will drive you. The safe house is a cabin by a lake. Everything you need is already there. I'll call every night at 8 to check in. If I miss a call, you take the twins and run. Understood? Understood. 2 hours later, Amara sat in another armored vehicle with 2 sleeping children and a bag of hastily packed belongings, watching the villa disappear behind them. Dante stood at the gate, a solitary figure against the ocean, and Amara wondered if she'd ever see him again. She didn't know that at that very moment, in a warehouse across town, Dante's men were interrogating the driver of one of the attacking SUVs. She didn't know the man would confess everything, including the name Marcus Chin. And she certainly didn't know that Dante's rage, when he learned his Amara's ex-husband was behind the attack, would be the kind that ended in bloodshed. The war had begun. And everyone Amara loved was caught in the crossfire. The safe house was nothing like Amara expected. Instead of a fortress, she found a charming lakeside cabin surrounded by pine trees. It had a wraparound porch, a stone fireplace, and windows that overlooked crystal-clear water. The setting was almost idyllic, if you ignored the armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Welcome to Casa del Lago, Marco said as he carried their bags inside. Mr. Moretti bought this property 5 years ago. Nobody outside his inner circle knows it exists. The twins, still shaken from the attack, clung to Amara as Marco showed them around. 3 bedrooms, a fully stocked kitchen, books and toys already waiting in what would be the children's room. Dante had thought of everything. That night, after Marco left and the guards took their positions outside, Amara tucked the twins into bed in the same room. Neither wanted to be alone. When's Papa coming? Livia asked, her voice small. Soon, Amara promised, praying it was true. He just needs to make sure everything's safe first. Those men wanted to hurt us, Lucas said flatly. Because of Papa's work. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. Your Papa has made some enemies. But he's also very strong and very smart. He won't let anything happen to you. Mama said the same thing, Livia whispered. And then she died anyway. The words broke Amara's heart. Your mama's accident wasn't your Papa's fault. Sometimes terrible things just happen, even when people try their hardest to stop them. Are you going to leave too? Luca asked. Like Mama? Like all the other nannies? No, Amara said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. Everyone promises, Livia said, tears spilling over. But then they leave. Amara pulled both children close. Then I'll just have to be the first one who keeps her promise, won't I? The days developed a rhythm. Mornings were for lessons. Amara taught them math and reading, using the lake and forest as inspiration for their work. Afternoons were for exploring the property, always under the watchful eyes of the guards. Evenings were for cooking dinner together, playing board games, and reading before bed. And every night at exactly 8 o'clock, the phone would ring. Papa, the twins would shout, fighting over who got to talk first. Dante always sounded tired but patient, asking about their day, telling them he loved them. Then he'd speak to Amara, his voice dropping to something more intimate.
How are they really? He'd ask.
Better each day. Luca's nightmares are less frequent. Livia actually laughed today, really laughed. And you? The question always caught her off guard. I fine. You're lying. I can hear it in your voice. He was right. Amara was terrified, not just of the danger, but of how much she'd come to care for these children. For this broken family. For Dante himself. I miss the ocean, she admitted one night. And I worry about you. Silence on the other end then. I miss you all too. The villa is too quiet without Livia's singing and Luca's questions. Without you organizing everything and telling me I'm being ridiculous. You are being ridiculous sometimes.
His laugh was soft, genuine. See?
Nobody else talks to me like that. Maybe they should. Maybe a pause. Amara, when this is over, when you come back, things will be different. I'm different because of you. Because of what you've shown me about my own children. Dante. Let me finish. I've spent 10 months pushing everyone away because I was terrified of losing someone else. But you were right. I was losing them anyway. You gave me a second chance to be their father. I won't waste it. Amara's throat tightened. They love you so much. They just need you to let them in. I know. And I'm trying. God, I'm trying. By the second week, the cabin felt like home. Amara taught the twins to fish from the small dock, laughing as Livia squealed every time something tugged her line. They built a fairy garden near the porch, collected pine cones for craft projects, and made s'mores over the fireplace on rainy evenings. One afternoon, while the twins were napping, Amara sat on the porch with a cup of tea and watched the sunlight dance on the water. One of the guards, a young man named Tommy, approached carefully.
Mom?
I just wanted to say, the boss's kids haven't smiled like this in a long time. Whatever you're doing, it's working. I'm just letting them be children, Amara said. With all respect, ma'am, it's more than that. Mr. Moretti, he's
different when he talks about you. Softer.
Like maybe he's remembering there's more to life than the business. Before Amara could respond, her phone rang. It wasn't 8 o'clock yet, and her heart jumped with fear. Dante? We need to talk, his voice was strained. We captured one of the men from the attack. He talked. And your ex-husband hired them. Marcus Chun is working with the Castellano family, my biggest rivals. They want you, Amara. Or more specifically, they want land you inherited from your grandmother. The world tilted.
What?
Marcus doesn't care about me. He cares about leverage and money. Your grandmother's property contains a private shipping access point worth millions in illegal trade. The Castellanos have been trying to acquire it for years. But you own it. And if they can't get to you, they can't get the land. I don't understand. Why didn't Marcus just ask me to sign it over during the divorce? Because he didn't know its value until after you left. Someone, probably the Castellanos, did research and approached him. They paid him to help them get to you. Amara felt sick. So, he orchestrated everything? Divorcing me publicly, making sure I was desperate enough to take any job. Not everything. The timing was coincidence. But once he found out you were with me, he saw an opportunity to play both sides, get paid by the Castellanos to help them reach you, and potentially extort me for your safety. That's why they attacked us. They were trying to kidnap me.
Yes.
And they'll try again, Dante's voice hardened. Which is why you need to stay exactly where you are. I'm handling this.
How?
You don't want to know. Dante. Trust me, Amara. Please. Let me protect you and the children. That's all I'm asking. After they hung up, Amara sat in stunned silence. Her entire marriage, her divorce, her desperate flight, Marcus had turned all of it into a transaction. She'd never been a person to him, just an asset. That night, when the twins asked why she looked sad, Amara hugged them tight. I'm not sad, she said. I'm grateful. For what? Luca asked.
For you.
For your father. For finding a real family when I didn't even know I was looking for 1 inch. Livia cuddled closer. You're our family too, Miss Amara. Forever and ever. Forever and ever, Amara repeated, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Outside, the guards maintained their vigil. The lake reflected starlight. And 300 miles away, Dante Moretti prepared for war, not for territory or pride, but for the women and children who'd become his entire world. The peaceful days at the cabin were numbered. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough. The warehouse on the industrial edge of a city smelled like rust and fear. Dante stood in the shadows, watching as Marco and 2 other men dragged a bloodied figure into the center of the space. The prisoner's hands were zip-tied behind his back, his face swollen from the beating he'd already received. This was Vincent Russo, one of the men who'd tried to run Amara and the twins off the road. And after 3 days of interrogation, he was finally ready to talk. Please, Vincent gasped. I told you everything. You told me Marcus Chan hired you, Dante said, his voice deadly calm as he stepped into the light. What you didn't tell me is why. And who else is involved? The Castellanos. It was all them. Chun was just the middleman. Start from the beginning. And if I think you're lying even once, Marco will remove one of your fingers. Understood? Vincent nodded frantically. It started 3 months ago. The Castellanos were researching properties along the coast, looking for private access points for their shipping operations. They found some old land records for a property near the Oregon border. 40 acres with a hidden cove, perfect for their needs. Amara's grandmother's land, Dante said.
Yes.
But the property was tied up in probate, and the heir was some woman named Amara Chin. The Castellanos did background checks and found out she'd recently married into a family with connections, minor connections, but enough to make direct approaches risky. So they waited until her divorce. Someone in their organization monitors legal filings. When they saw Marcus Chin file for divorce, they saw an opportunity. They approached him with a deal, helped them locate and acquire his ex-wife, and they'd pay him handsomely. Dante's fists clenched. How much? 50,000 up front. $500,000 if he delivered her with a signed property deed. The number made Dante's vision go red. Amara's husband, the man who'd vowed to love her, had sold her out for money. Marcus told them she'd fled north. Vincent continued quickly. When they tracked her to Waverly Cove and realized she was with you, they nearly backed out. Nobody wants to go to war with Dante Moretti over a piece of land. But they did anyway. Because the land isn't just valuable, it's strategic. With that access point, the Castellanos could expand their operations up the entire northern coast. It's worth the risk of your retaliation. Plus, they figured if they could grab the woman and the kids, they'd have leverage over you. Leverage, Dante repeated softly, dangerously. They knew you'd gone soft. After your wife died, you pulled back from the business, started refusing certain jobs. Anthony Castellano said you were weak now, that you cared more about those kids than about maintaining respect. He thought. Marco's fist connected with Vincent's jaw before Dante could stop him. Nobody calls him weak, Marco growled. Dante held up a hand. Who else knew about the plan?
Names.
All of them. Vincent rattled off a list. Castellano family soldiers, corrupt officials who'd been paid to look the other way, and one name that made Dante's blood run cold. Ricardo Vega, he repeated. He's one of mine. Was one of yours, Vincent corrected weakly. The Castellanos flipped him 2 years ago. He's been feeding them information about your operations, your security protocols, your schedule. He's the one who told them which car you'd be in that day. He's the reason they knew about the coastal drive. Betrayal within his own organization. Dante had suspected there was a leak, but Ricardo was a 15-year veteran, someone he'd trusted implicitly. Where's Ricardo now? The Castellanos are keeping him in a safe house downtown. They're planning another attempt to grab the woman. A bigger one this time. They know where your lakeside property is, Mr. Moretti. Ricardo gave them the location 3 days ago. The world stopped. What did you just say? The cabin. They know about the cabin. They're planning to hit it within 48 hours, when your guard rotation changes. They'll have 20 men, maybe more. And this time, they're not just trying to kidnap her. Anthony Castellano wants everyone dead. He said you've become a liability, and removing you and your heirs opens up new territory for expansion. Dante pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed. Marco, get me Tommy at the cabin.
Now.
The call connected. Boss. Full lockdown. Nobody in or out. Double the perimeter guards and arm everyone with automatic weapons. The Castellanos know your location and they're planning an assault.
Jesus.
When? Within 2 days. I'm coming myself with reinforcements. But Tommy, listen to me carefully. If anything happens before I get there, your only job is to get Amara and the children out safely. There's an emergency exit in the basement leading to a tunnel system. Follow it to the vehicle depot 2 miles north. The code is 1847. You get them out and you run. Understood? Understood, boss. Dante hung up and turned back to Vincent. Who else knows about this plan? Everyone in the Castellano inner circle. This is their big move. Take you out, grab the woman, force her to sign over the land, then eliminate all witnesses. Anthony wants to send a message that the Castellanos are the new power on the coast. Is that so? Dante's voice dropped to something lethal. Marco, contact everyone. Every soldier we have, every ally we can trust. I want the Castellano organization crippled by dawn. Hit their operations, freeze their accounts, call in every favor we're owed. And find Ricardo Vega. I want him brought to me alive. What about this one? Marco gestured to Vincent. Dante studied the broken man for a long moment. He cooperated. Let the authorities have him, with evidence linking him to the road attack. He'll spend the next 20 years in prison thinking about his choices. As Marco dragged Vincent away, Dante stood alone in the warehouse, his mind racing. The Castellanos had made a fatal miscalculation. They thought his love for Amara and the twins made him weak. They were about to learn it made him unstoppable. He pulled out his phone and called the cabin one more time. Amara answered. Dante? What's wrong? You never call twice. I need you to listen very carefully. The people who attacked us know where you are. I'm sending more guards tonight, and I'm coming myself tomorrow with an army. But if anything happens before I get there, Tommy knows what to do. You follow his lead, you protect the twins, and you survive. Understood. Dante, you're scaring me.
Good.
Fear will keep you alert, his voice softened. Amara, I need you to know something. In case everything goes wrong, don't say goodbye. I'm not. I'm saying that you and those children are the best thing that's happened to me in years. You gave me back my family, my purpose, and I will burn down the entire Castellano organization before I let them touch any of you. Just come get us, Amara whispered. Come get us and take us home. I will. I promise. I'll see you tomorrow. After hanging up, Dante made one final call to his attorney. If I don't survive the next 48 hours, everything goes to Amara Chen. The villa, the offshore accounts, custody of the twins. All of it. Make it ironclad. Make it so nobody can challenge her claim. Dante, what's happening? War, he said simply. And this time, I'm fighting for something worth dying for. The knock on the cabin door came at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before sunrise. Amara was already awake, brewing coffee with trembling hands after a sleepless night. Through the window, she could see Tommy and the other guards on high alert, weapons ready. When Tommy opened the door, Amara's blood turned to ice. Marcus stood on the porch, hands raised, looking disheveled and desperate. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his face unshaven, his eyes red-rimmed. Please, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Please, I need to speak to Amara. I made a terrible mistake. Get off this property, Tommy ordered, his hand on his weapon.
Now.
I'm not armed. Search me. Marcus lifted his shirt, turned in a circle. I just need 5 minutes. I came alone. I need to warn her. The Castellanos are planning something. I was stupid and greedy and I got involved with people I shouldn't have, but I can't let them hurt her. Amara appeared in the doorway, her heart hammering. How did you find this place? I still have connections, Marcus said, his voice breaking convincingly. Please, Amara. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but at least let me help keep you safe. I have information about the attack they're planning. Tommy looked at Amara. Ma'am, this could be a trap. It is a trap, Amara said flatly. But something in Marcus's expression, genuine fear, maybe, made her hesitate. Search him thoroughly. Then he can come inside for exactly 5 minutes. The children stay upstairs with 2 guards. Marcus submitted to the search without complaint. When Tommy confirmed he was unarmed and wore no wire, they allowed him into the living room. 4 guards positioned themselves around the space, weapons trained on him. Talk, Amara said coldly. You have 5 minutes. Marcus slumped into a chair, the picture of remorse. The Castellanos approached me after the divorce. They offered money if I helped them find you. I was angry, broke from legal fees, and I said yes. I didn't realize what they really wanted until he looked up, his eyes glistening. Until I found out they planned to kill you after getting the property deed. I can't have that on my conscience. You sold me to criminals, and now you want credit for having second thoughts? I'm trying to make it right. The attack is happening today, noon exactly. 20 armed men. They're going to breach from the north side where the trees are thickest. But there's something else, something Moretti doesn't know. Amara's stomach dropped. What? They have someone on the inside. One of his own men. The guard rotations, the security codes, all compromised. You're not safe here, Amara. You need to run now before. The explosion rocked the entire cabin. The north wall erupted in flames and smoke. Gunfire erupted from outside. Rapid, chaotic, deadly. Tommy was shouting into his radio, trying to coordinate a defense while guards returned fire. The children. Amara screamed, running for the stairs. She made it 3 steps before Marcus grabbed her arm with bruising force. I'm sorry, he whispered, and something hard pressed against her ribs. A gun. One the guards had missed because it had been hidden outside, exactly where Marcus knew he'd be searched. Move and I shoot you right here, he hissed. The twins aren't in danger, yet. The Castellanos only want you. Come quietly, and the kids live. You bastard. I'm a survivor. Always have been. He dragged her toward the back door as the firefight intensified. And that property is worth more than whatever guilt I might feel. Through the smoke and chaos, Amara saw Tommy go down with a bullet to the shoulder. The other guards were pinned down by overwhelming firepower. She tried to scream, to fight, but Marcus had the gun pressed hard into her side. One sound and I put a bullet in you, then go upstairs for the brats. Choose. Amara went silent, tears streaming down her face as Marcus dragged her out the back door and into the forest. A black van waded 30 yards into the trees. 2 men grabbed Amara and threw her inside while Marcus climbed into the passenger seat. Drive, he ordered. Moretti's reinforcements will be here any minute. As the van sped away, Amara was zip-tied and a hood thrown over her head. She heard Marcus on the phone, his voice cold and businesslike now that the act was over. Yes, I have her. No, the kids are still in the cabin. That wasn't part of our deal. I delivered the woman. You pay me my money, and we're done.
What?
No, I'm not going to. His voice changed, became frightened. That wasn't the agreement. You said. A gunshot rang out inside the van. Amara screamed as something heavy fell near her feet. Marcus's body. Loose ends, a new voice said calmly. The boss doesn't like them. Remove the hood. Let her see what happens to people who cross the Castellano family. The hood was ripped off. Amara found herself face to face with a man in an expensive suit, his smile cold and reptilian. Hello, Mrs. Chen.
I'm Antone Castellano.
You and I need to have a conversation about some property you own, and about Dante Moretti's unfortunate attachment to you. Behind him, Marcus's body lay crumpled, blood pooling beneath him. The man who'd betrayed her, who'd sold her for money, had been betrayed in turn. Amara should have felt satisfaction. Instead, she felt only terror. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere your lover will come looking," Anthony said, lighting a cigarette. "See, you're not just valuable for that land. You're bait. And Dante Moretti is so predictable when someone he cares about is in danger. He'll come for you with everything he has. And when he does, we'll be waiting." He leaned forward, blowing smoke in her face. "I'm going to destroy him, Mrs. Chun. His empire, his reputation, his life. And you're going to help me do it." The van drove on into the morning, carrying Amara toward a fate she couldn't imagine. Behind them, at the cabin, Dante arrived with 40 armed men to find his guards wounded, his safe house burning, and the woman he'd sworn to protect gone. The look on his face when Tommy told him what happened was something no one who saw it would ever forget. It was the look of a man who'd lost everything, and who would stop at nothing to get it back. The abandoned shipyard on the edge of the harbor was a graveyard of rusted cranes and rotting docks. Amara sat tied to a chair in what used to be a foreman's office, her wrists raw from the zip ties. Through the broken windows, she could see Castellano's men positioned throughout the facility, at least 30 of them, all armed, all waiting. "He should be here soon," Anthony Castellano said, checking his watch. "We sent him a video 2 hours ago. Very dramatic. You looked appropriately terrified." Amara said nothing. She'd learned that silence frustrated him more than defiance. "You know what I don't understand?" Anthony continued, circling her chair like a predator. "What Dante Moretti sees in you. You're pretty enough, I suppose, but nothing special. Certainly not worth going to war over." "Maybe that's why you'll lose," Amara said quietly. "You don't understand that people can matter more than territory." Anthony's hand cracked across her face. "People are commodities, Mrs. Chun. The sooner you learn that, the less disappointed you'll be." Outside, one of his men called out, "Boss, movement on the north perimeter?" Anthony smiled. "Right on schedule." Dante never could resist a damsel in distress. He grabbed Amara's chin roughly. "Here's what's going to happen. Moretti will storm in here thinking he's the hero. My men will cut him down. And you'll watch the man stupid enough to care about you die before I make you sign over that property. And if I refuse, then I'll have someone bring those adorable twins here and hurt them in front of you until you comply." He released her chin. "Everyone breaks eventually, Mrs. Chun. Everyone." He walked out, leaving 2 guards with her. Amara's mind raced. She had to warn Dante somehow. This was a trap and he was walking straight into it because of her. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in red. Shouts erupted from outside, followed by gunfire, sharp, precise shots that didn't sound like the wild spray of automatic weapons. One of Amara's guards spoke into his radio. "What's happening out there?" "Report." Static, then screaming, then nothing. The door to the office exploded inward. Dante stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, blood splattered across his white shirt, none of it his. He held a gun in each hand, and his eyes blazed with barely controlled fury. "Get away from her," he said softly. The first guard reached for his weapon. Dante shot him in the shoulder before he could aim. The second guard raised his hands in surrender. "Run," Dante ordered.
"Now."
The guard fled. Dante crossed to Amara in 3 strides, holstering one gun to pull a knife and cut her restraints. "Are you hurt?"
"I'm okay."
"Dante, it's a trap. There are 30 men. 23 now," he corrected, pulling her to her feet. "And I brought 40. Plus Marco hacked their communications. We've been listening to their plans for the last hour." "You knew this was a trap?" "Of course I knew. Anthony Castellano is predictable." Dante cupped her face, his thumb brushing over where Anthony had struck her. His expression darkened. "Did he do this?" "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." He kissed her forehead quickly, fiercely. "Stay behind me. Don't leave my sight." They moved through the shipyard like ghosts. Dante's men had taken strategic positions, turning the Castellanos' planned ambush against them. Bodies littered the ground, some dead, most wounded and disarmed. Then they found Anthony Castellano pinned down behind a shipping container, 3 of his men dead around him. "Moretti," Anthony shouted. "We can make a deal. The woman for safe passage." Dante's laugh was cold. "You don't have anything I want, Anthony, except your surrender. You think you've won? I have connections. Allies. Kill me, and you'll have 5 families coming for you." "No, you don't." Dante stepped into view, pulling Amara behind him. "See, while you were planning this amateur ambush, I was making calls. Your allies have been very interested to learn that you've been skimming from the Joint Operations Fund, that you plan to use this territory grab to cut them out entirely. Right now, they're seizing your assets and dividing up your operation." Anthony's face went white. "You're lying. Ask your underboss." "Oh wait, you can't. He's the one who gave me the evidence in exchange for amnesty." Dante raised his gun. "It's over, Anthony. You gambled everything on destroying me, and you lost. You can't kill me in cold blood. There are rules." "You broke the rules when you targeted my children," Dante said flatly. "When you put your hands on the woman I love, there are no rules anymore." Anthony made a desperate grab for his weapon. Dante fired once, precisely. Anthony Castellano collapsed, clutching his leg and screaming. Dante had deliberately avoided a kill shot. "Marco!" Dante called out. "Anthony Castellano has warrants in 3 states for racketeering and murder.
Call the FBI.
Let them have him. He can explain everything from a prison cell." As Marco made the call and medics arrived for the wounded, Dante turned back to Amara. She was shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off. "The twins are safe. I had them moved before I came here. Rosa and 6 guards are with them at a new location." Dante pulled her into his arms. "It's over, Amara. Really over." She buried her face in his chest and finally let herself cry for the fear, the danger, the awful sight of Marcus's body, and the overwhelming relief that they'd survived. Dante held her through it all, one hand in her hair, his heart beating steady against her ear. "I got you," he murmured. "I've got you." Somewhere in the chaos, Marco approached cautiously. "Boss, you're hit." Dante looked down and seemed surprised to find blood seeping through his shirt near his ribs. "Just a graze." "That's more than a graze. You need medical attention." "After," Dante said firmly, not releasing Amara. "After I make sure she's okay." But Amara pulled back, seeing the blood for the first time. "You're shot, Dante." "I told you," he said, swaying slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. "I'd burn down the world before I let them hurt you." Then his legs buckled, and Amara screamed as the man who'd saved her collapsed in her arms. 3 weeks later, the villa was filled with afternoon sunlight and the sound of children's laughter. Amara stood in the kitchen doorway, watching Dante chase Luca and Livia through the living room. He moved carefully, still healing from the bullet wound that had required surgery and 2 days in the hospital. But his smile was genuine, uninhibited, as Livia squealed and dodged around the sofa. "I'm going to catch you," he threatened playfully. "You're too slow, Papa."
Luca laughed.
"Too slow? We'll see about that." He caught Livia and lifted her into the air, making her giggle uncontrollably, then set her down gently and pulled Luca into a hug. Both children were still laughing, still happy, no longer the quiet, frightened kids Amara had met that first day. Rosa appeared beside Amara, wiping happy tears from her eyes. "I never thought I'd see this house full of joy again." "Neither did I," Amara admitted. The weeks since the shipyard had been a whirlwind. The FBI had arrested what remained of the Castellano organization. Anthony would spend life in prison, along with Ricardo Vega and a dozen others. Marcus's body had been identified, his death ruled a consequence of his criminal associations. Amara had signed documents releasing any claim to her grandmother's land, donating it instead to a wildlife conservation trust. No one would ever use that property for criminal purposes again. And through it all, Dante had recovered, the twins had healed, and somehow, impossibly, they'd become a family. "Miss Amara," Livia called out, "come play with us." Amara joined them on the floor, where they were building an elaborate castle out of blocks. Dante sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "The structural integrity is all wrong," he said seriously, examining Luca's tower. "This will never hold." "It's not about structural integrity, Papa," Luca said with exaggerated patience. "It's about imagination. Your son is very wise," Amara told Dante. "Gets it from his mother," Dante said softly, and the momentary sadness in his eyes was for Maria, a gentle, healing sadness rather than the devastating grief of before. That evening, after the twins were in bed and Rosa had retired to her cottage, Dante found Amara on the rooftop terrace where they'd first really talked. "You've been quiet today," he said, handing her a glass of wine. "Just thinking. About." Amara hesitated. "About what happens next. The danger is over. The twins are thriving. You don't really need a caretaker anymore." Dante was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "You're right. I don't need a caretaker," he turned to face her fully. "I need you, Amara. Not as an employee. Not as someone I hired to fix my family. As the woman who saved us all." "Dante. Let me finish," he took her hand, his grip warm and steady. "These past months, you've given me back everything I thought I'd lost. You showed me how to be a father again. You made the twins believe in happiness. You walked into danger without hesitation because you love them," he paused. "And somewhere along the way, I fell completely, impossibly in love with you." Amara's breath caught. "You love me?" "Terrifyingly so. When Anthony took you, when I thought I might lose you," his voice broke, "I realized that I'd do anything to keep you in our lives. The twins already see you as their mother. They call you that when you're not listening." Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. "They do. Every night when I tuck them in, they ask if you're really staying forever. They're terrified you'll leave like everyone else." Dante wiped her tears gently. "So, I'm asking you, Amara-chan, will you stay? Not as hired help, but as family. As my wife. As their mother. Are you proposing?" "Yes." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. "I know this is fast. I know you came here running from one bad marriage. But what we have, what we've built together, it's real. The twins need you. I need you. And if you need time, I'll wait. If you want to take things slowly, we'll take them slowly. But please, please don't leave." Amara looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. Dante Moretti, dangerous and damaged, and trying so hard to be good for his children. The man who'd risked everything to save her. The man whose broken family had somehow healed hers. "My ex-husband rejected me because I couldn't give him children," she said softly. "He made me feel worthless. Broken. You're not." "I know," she interrupted, smiling through her tears. "Because you gave me 2 children who needed a mother just as much as I needed them. You gave me a family I never thought I'd have. You gave me love without conditions." She took the ring from the box and slipped it onto her own finger. "Yes, Dante. Yes to everything. To being their mother.
To being your wife.
To staying forever." His kiss was gentle at first, then desperate, pouring months of longing and fear and relief into that single moment. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. "The twins are going to lose their minds," Dante said, laughing wetly. "Should we tell them tonight?" "Absolutely not. They'll never sleep." He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "Tomorrow. We'll tell them tomorrow and let them help plan the wedding. It'll be chaos." "I love chaos," Amara said. "As long as it's with you." They stood on the rooftop as the sun set over the ocean, 2 broken people who'd found healing in each other. Below them, the villa that had been a fortress became a home. Inside, 2 children slept peacefully, knowing that when they woke, their family would still be whole. 6 months later, Amara and Dante married in a small ceremony on the beach with the twins as flower girl and ring bearer. Livia's flower petals went everywhere except down the aisle. Luca dropped the rings twice. It was perfect. The wedding photos showed a family built not on blood or obligation, but on choice. On a lonely mafia boss who learned to love again. On twins who found joy after loss. On a woman rejected for being barren who discovered she'd been a mother all along. She just hadn't met her children yet. As the sun set on their wedding day and the twins fell asleep between them on the sofa, Dante kissed Amara's temple. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For being brave enough to get on that bus. For taking a job that terrified you. For loving my children.
For loving me."
Amara looked at the sleeping twins, then at the man she'd married, and smiled. "Thank you for choosing me," she said. "When the whole world said I was broken, you saw someone whole." "You were always whole," Dante said. "I was the broken one. You just put the pieces back together." And in that moment, surrounded by the family she'd found in the most unexpected place, Amara knew that her story, their story, wasn't about rejection or revenge or running away. It was about finding home in the last place she'd ever expected to look. And living happily, messily, beautifully ever after.
The end.